Okay, and we're live. So we are joined today, but with Kevin Jess again. We're going to be reviewing A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Okay, Kevin, you can go ahead. I'm just going to share the stream out while you do a quick recap.
Oh,
You're,
a quick recap?
yeah, you're
Okay.
good at it. You're the good one.
Okay, all right.
I suck at recaps.
Okay, a beautiful day in the neighborhood. I just call it Mr. Rogers, but
Yeah.
the movie is not what a lot of people would expect. It wasn't what I expected anyway. I won't speak for anybody else. It wasn't what I expected. I expected more of a biopic
Yeah, that's
where,
what I did too, but I
yes,
still loved it. But
oh, I did too, but it basically it's the story of this journalist who gets an assignment to interview Mr. Rogers and the experience that he has with Mr. Rogers during this prolonged interview, which was only a couple minutes, but it continued on
mhm.
over time. Um, and that's, I mean,
Yeah,
Tom Hanks, of course, everyone knows that he played Mr. Rogers,
and
and uh, you'd swear to God that it's Mr.
I
Rogers.
know, and the thing is, and the more and more you watched it, the more and more you remembered it, like, because it's been off the air since 2001. But this is what I grew up with. I never missed an episode as a kid of Mr. Rogers, and the
Hmm.
more there's just something about him too that just made me just feel like he was talking to me. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And that's what he wanted to do. Like, he wanted to make it feel like he was. And I've watched little documentaries on him, and he is Mr. Rogers. This is not something that he puts on for TV. He is probably one of the nicest people in the world, and they couldn't have picked a better person to play him because Tom Hanks is literally one of the nicest, probably nicest people in the
Yeah.
world. You know what I mean? And to play Mr. Rogers, it was just amazing, spot on.
Yeah.
But
And come to find out, he's a sixth cousin or something
is he
to, yeah.
to Mr.
Yeah.
Rogers?
Yes, he
Mm,
is.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, the guy that plays the journalist in it, apparently, I don't know, must have been living in a cave, but he said that he didn't know anything about Mr. Rogers, never heard tell of him that much. And I found that a little bit difficult to swallow
Hmm.
because even if you hadn't watched Mr. Rogers, you would have heard about Mr. Rogers. I,
Yes.
I would find that very difficult to believe. But nevertheless, that's what he said. And I found it comical.
I did too.
Yeah. And now from say a person who did not grow up with Mr. Rogers, okay, I watched, it was Malachi and I watching the movie, and he had not grown up with Mr. Rogers. I mean, he was born in 1999, so it
Hmm.
was not something that he saw or anything. He said, like, it was just so common to listen to him talk, and it just calmed you down.
Yeah.
And he said, I could go to sleep with that, and not meaning it in a bad way.
No, no, there was just something, yeah, like it's soothing about him. And he's so genuine.
Yeah,
Genuine. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
yes, I do.
and what I liked about this movie is, and what I like about Mr. Rogers is, because do you remember the scene in the movie when he brings out the puppets and to show the reporter that, and he says to him that the reporter says, "Oh, these have seen better days." And I can remember watching Mr. Rogers and seeing the toys getting dusty and old looking, and I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "They haven't changed to these toys." And that's what I liked. I liked that about the show. These, like, the kitten, the cat was always my favorite.
Yes,
Daniel,
yes.
and he was always my favorite. I always thought he was adorable, and he gets ratty and dusty and all that stuff. And I like that about the fact that they didn't change anything, that they kept it the same puppets, the same everything. I mean, even Sesame Street like changes stuff. And
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, and not everything just stays classic in it,
yeah,
and he's, from what I've seen and what I've been reading about Mr. Rogers, is that like people say he is an actual, he's like a superhero, like a real life superhero. He does
yeah,
things that nobody else would do. He would have people on his set all the time, just regularly, to kids, sick kids, like they said, like they showed with the one with cystic fibrosis. Like that's true.
yes,
That kid that was on there, that would happen all the time, and he did write letters, like for himself all the time to kids, and he was a good person.
yeah. It was, and like I went on just to research a little bit because when I grew up, even though this was back then, okay, this like I would have, like, I was born in '62, so you see what I mean. Like I would have been of that age, but you see, we didn't have Mister Rogers.
No.
Okay, even though it was on the air at the time, we didn't have it because it wasn't on our television stations that we had
Okay.
here. Okay, we only had two or three channels, and they weren't. It wasn't on that. It was on cable, like
Oh,
PBS, right? You see what I mean? And we
PBS.
didn't
I
have
thought
it.
PBS was on basic cable.
Well, see, we didn't have cable.
Oh, you're right. You just, yeah. Okay, I see what you
There
mean.
was no
It
such
was
thing.
just a two, like you had like the three and probably 3 and 6 was usually the channels that of people who didn't have
Well, no, it would have been. Well,
CBC.
it was 3 and 10 is what
Three.
we had,
Mm-hmm.
and so three being CBC,
Yeah.
and 10 being CTV. Well, CJCH. It was called at the time, and it was not on either one of those stations. Um, and then there was one that you could get every once in a while if you had a really high television antenna from St. John, I think it was, and that didn't give you anything like that either. Now I can remember looking. It used to be a teleguide that told you what was on television, and of course people in Kentville and whatever, they had cable, and so we could see. It was kind of like an envious thing, like, oh my goodness, look at all these shows that they can watch, right? But I mean, we didn't really care. What you don't know doesn't hurt you, right? So, but no, we never had Mr. Rogers. Now later on, of course, when we had kids ourselves, we had cable, of course, and so or satellite or whatever it was that we had at the time, and Mr. Rogers was on it.
Yeah. I don't remember ever a time when we didn't have PBS, and Mr. Rogers was the best one on it. Other and then the second best was Sesame Street, which I found has gone downhill so bad. It's still in the air and it's just terrible. And where Mr. Rogers refused to go that route. Like he would never let his show kind of sell out like Sesame Street did. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it, and like all the other ones that seemed that have been, but Mr. Rogers, he stuck to the same. And what he did, he would always he talked about things that no one else would talk about. He would talk about divorce, death. He talked about the president when he got assassinated,
Yeah.
JFK. He talked about that. He talked things that they wouldn't touch. He talked about um, bullying and death, like all the stuff that they would say you shouldn't talk about with kids, and he would talk about it in a way on their level, and so that they would understand and know how to deal with those
Well,
feelings.
if you notice when he talked very quietly,
Yes.
and then he would pause. He would
Yes.
stop. He would
Very
just stop
slow.
there. Yes, and because for children, they would absorb what he just said. He
Exactly.
he he was very knowledgeable on how to communicate with children, and not only that, but he did things that were symbolic. Like, for instance, um, on his show there was a police officer. I
Yes,
believe
I remember.
and he was black.
Yep.
And there's a scene where he brings him onto the show, and they put their feet into the same pool of water and sit there with their feet in the same pool of water. Okay, there wasn't anything said, like they weren't saying it, but you saw it,
Yes.
and that act, right? Now I can't imagine how many children that saw that it had a profound effect on them.
Yeah. And he knew how to send a message, to it in a way that kids would relate.
Yes.
And things like that. That's a Yeah, and that was a good thing for him to do, because especially in a time back when this show first started, when racism was a huge issue,
Well,
in
and
the
it still
six
is
yeah.
today, but
Oh
the
yeah.
thing is, back then it was during the '60s when they were having all of these race riots
Yeah.
and I mean, black people were being abused so badly. They are still today, but
They've come far, but because of things like, luckily, people like him, you know.
well, he took us quite a ways.
Mhm.
And I'm not speaking for black people because I'm not black.
No,
I cannot. I am not.
we don't
I do not
have that.
share their experience.
No.
I just don't. So I don't. But as a white person, okay, who, let's face it, we all have racist tendencies, whether we want to admit it or not. Okay, and it has an effect. It has an effect on how we think, and that we should think a certain way. That our minds have been dirtied up over the years, and a lot of it is coming back today.
Mhm.
Unfortunately,
It's so sad.
we need we need Mr. Rogers back today.
I know, I like when he died, I literally broke down.
Yeah.
Did you see his final speech when he at the when he was accepting the it was only a short one, and it made everybody cry. He got the Lifetime Achievement Award, and
Yes.
it was his very last speech. And oh my gosh, he it's so simple and yet so deep. And he just tells everybody in the audience. He talks to them all like Mr. Rogers, all these adults in the group, and he tells them all to take 10 minutes or 10 seconds to think about people in their lives who have done good things for them and
Yeah.
helped them and all this stuff. And he says take 10 seconds to think of somebody in your life who has helped you, who loves you, who does all these who you love and with all, unconditionally. And he times them for 10 seconds and then goes on, and he makes everybody bawl, like everybody's crying in the stadium,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
he's just got that way. But this movie, um there's certain scenes in the movie that just were so nostalgic, like the part with that. I always was fascinated as a kid with picture,
Yes.
that scene. And when they talk about magazines, and when
How they make
how
them.
they make the magazines. And Tom Hanks, when he was kind of narrating how Mr. Rogers always would do the like, oh wow, because it was usually Mr. Healy would um
Mr. McFeely.
McFeely, yeah, I always get that mixed up. McFeely would
Yeah.
always be there, and he would say, like, talking about what they were watching, and they would talk about it together. And
Yes.
I remember that so clearly, and the way that Tom Hanks did it was spot on. And you can't do
Yeah.
that so easily,
No, it's not. No, he had big shoes to fill.
No, oh yeah.
Now there was a scene in that movie that I thought was profound for me, and it was him and the journalist, and they were sitting in a diner,
That was really good. That
wasn't
was
it?
a
And he
good
said,
scene.
let's just be quiet for a moment,
Oh yeah.
you know? And it wasn't just them. The whole restaurant went
Mhm.
quiet,
Yep. That was,
right?
yep.
That's the power that Mr. Rogers had,
Yep.
right?
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, that was a really good scene. And also, when he told him, he asked him who it was that had hurt him.
Yes.
Okay, and he said it was his father, and he's like, "Oh," Like he was
hurt by that,
he
and
was hurt by it. Yeah.
yeah, and because he is he's got empathy to a point that most people don't, and it's rare, and it's so we're so thankful. I'm so thankful to have grown up in this age. But like the very first scene when he comes out and he's kind of doing the thing, right? Like his normal like singing.
Yes.
And then he's talking when he does the song, which was spot on. I couldn't believe how well he did that, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood song.
Yeah.
And then he goes and does the picture board. And when he showed and he started talking about how he was bullied as a kid, and because of the show, his show does get dark. Like I
Yeah.
said, he talks about things and talking about how the kids would call him fat fat Freddy and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And then he pulls the picture out of Lloyd there, and he looks and he's all like his face is all kind of busted up, and
Yeah.
then he said somebody's hurt like somebody what hurt my friend Lloyd, and then he goes, and that's how that story goes to starts on
Yeah.
and I was like, where is this going? Because I didn't know what to expect with this movie,
Yeah.
like because then it went off to this, like it was going off on
Because
this
you were
other guy's,
expecting a biopic.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
went off on this guy's story of his issues,
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers basically helping him fixing him, and
Yeah.
he does, and that was a tough thing for him to do, but he
Another great scene was on the train,
mm-hmm. Oh, and the
and
kids sang.
everybody started singing. Even the police officers and everybody were singing.
Oh yeah, that, and he sang along too, and that's the kind of
Yeah.
thing that he would really do. Like
Yeah.
he wasn't.
That was just wonderful. You got,
Mhm.
and you can't help but laugh at this. This. Well, he's a beautiful man, is what he is, right?
Yes, he is. And I just, I can't. There's actually this documentary done about him, Won't You Be My Neighbor, which I'm thinking that we should probably watch and do maybe a
Yeah.
little talk discussion about, because I've seen a lot of people doing reviews on it, and apparently it talks extreme detail of like his story, and goes into it way more depth. So I kind of want to check that out because
His. Yeah, that would be interesting. His wife has been coming out too, because they, wanting to get feedback from his wife, and it said, well, what was so funny was it said that he used to fart to make her laugh.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
it was the furthest thing from my mind. But once she said it, I thought, I can see him doing that.
Oh yeah, that's
You know?
funny. Yeah, but she said, like, because they were talking on there that that he would have his struggles of like anybody, because he's human, but he would have his ways of dealing with it. And I like the part when he was saying how he could he just you play the keys, lowest keys on the keyboard, or swim in a pool really
Yeah,
fast, and all the pound clay stuff like that.
yeah.
These ways that
And
he's
then at the end, it shows him pounding on that piano.
yes. Yeah, well, yeah, I know, and I wonder what that was about, like, too, because obviously, it's showing that he's human too, and that he's,
Yeah.
and going through his own battles,
Hmm.
but he cares so much about other people. I can't to have that kind of be that kind of person. It's like, I don't know, I can't imagine. Trying to think of something else. There's so
When
much.
he talked about his dog.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. That was a really good scene.
Yeah, Mitzi, I think your name
Mm-hmm.
was. And did you want to see a picture of her? And it just, it made you feel like he makes you feel,
He does. He really
right?
does.
And feel for somebody else's hurt or some, he teaches you how to show empathy. That's what it's all about. You know,
Mm-hmm.
how to show empathy for other people and how to accept yourself and love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically him, I think, and
And
what he did.
and he was his kind of thing that he was trying to do was help this guy forgive his father, who we should probably talk about this guy's horrible father, but he kind of his father was sick though, and it had this his father had severe issues and treated him very badly. And
Yes.
yeah,
Well, he
and
left them. He
yeah,
abandoned them. Yeah, and then eventually met up with another woman who didn't know about his family, didn't know that they existed until like a year ago or something like that. And she was actually a good person,
yeah,
and but he was not,
no,
right? And yet he was able to bring Mr. Rogers was able to bring this journalist around to the point where he could forgive him,
yeah, yeah, that
right?
would be difficult. That was a difficult thing for him to do because he blamed him for his like her his mother's death because
Yes,
his mother had died and she was very sick and he was said that she had
I
had
think he was 10.
a terrible death, and because he said in details that she was screaming in pain, and then finally when she went, they came and revived her, and then she ended up having to go through that all over again,
Yeah,
die for a second time, and that would be a pretty traumatic experience for a little boy to
yeah.
go
Well,
through.
because he was only 10, I think, when it
Yeah,
happened.
and he
Yes.
had some sort of like I got kind of confused at a part. Like there was like a scene when he was at on the set, and then kind of passed out or something, and then he was like tripping or having some crazy dream. Remember that dream?
Yes.
Yeah. So what happened there? He was he actually on the set ever, or did he dream that whole thing?
I think it was all a dream.
Because he woke up
But
in this
he had been on the set. I mean, he'd been on the set several times.
because he
But
woke up at Mr. Rogers' house. Remember? And they were playing
yes,
piano.
yes, that's right. That's
So
right.
he must have been on, because I was like, what part of this is a dream and what part did, because comes out and it's like he's just on a show and all of a sudden everything gets really slow and everybody talks slow in this. Did you notice that?
Mhm.
Everybody was talking really slow, kind of like Mr. Rogers in this, and the whole thing was like a big Mr. Rogers show. Like the
Yes,
car scenes, like when they would drive, the music would play, and it would show the town in like
in
the
miniature.
yeah, it was really cool. It was a
Yeah,
really totally different movie than I've ever seen before, which is
yes.
good because it's been a while since I've seen a good movie. They've all been really bad. That like seems like every movie I've watched lately has been terrible that we go to want to review. But
Yeah,
it's
this
good.
one though takes the cake. It's just a beautiful movie. It's one that it will not leave you feeling badly or anything. It doesn't stir that kind of emotion.
Hmm.
There's no anger. It's just a really nice, nicely done movie with good actors and a good story. And hopefully, like I would really like to see a biopic. Um, but and that's what I was thought it was going to be, and that's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, but I was really
But
happy with what I got here.
I was happy with what. Yeah, I was happy
I
with.
was happy to be surprised too. It was I don't I like seeing a trailer for something and thinking I know what I'm going into and being surprised in a good way.
Yeah,
Because usually it's either you're happy or it sucks. And if I was I after seeing that it was Tom Hanks playing him, I was pretty much confident. I'm very confident that I was going to like
yeah,
this movie. There was just
yeah,
no way because Tom Hanks and himself. And I want to talk about Tom Hanks a little bit too. I love him. Like he's my number. I do. I love him.
yeah,
He's my number one favorite actor in the whole world. Second would probably be Robin Williams, but he's my favorite person in the world. I love everything that he's in.
yeah.
And
Pretty much. I mean, I can't think of one that I haven't liked that
no,
he was
me
in.
neither. Me neither. Um,
He
he
can
can,
play.
yeah, remember on, like he can make you care about a stupid beach ball. Remember
Yeah,
Wilson?
yeah, yeah.
Like if he can make you want like get all emotional over a like a beach ball floating away, then he's a good
Yeah,
actor. Really is a good actor, and he pulled this off so well. He did a really
yeah.
good job.
Oh, he should get an award for this.
I think that they were saying that this is going to be a contender, and like for sure because he deserves something. I wonder how many awards he has anyway. Tom
I,
Hanks.
I don't know. I'm sure he must have yes, he's had Best Actor awards.
Hmm.
I believe. You know, but I can't remember for which one. I can't.
Like he's been in so many good ones. Like Terminal was really good, and
Yeah,
there's like a ton of them. He's been in a lot of stuff, and he's also very like open with his fans. Like there's pictures that he'll take selfies with. Like there's pictures of people like pa who passed out and he'll drunk and he'll grab their phone and take a selfie with their like
yes,
I've seen stuff like that. He'll
yes.
do stuff like that, and then that's the kind of those are the kind of celebrities that I like, and that's the kind of person Mr. Rogers is was too, and that's like a just a good person who is like right out there for. And I wonder what kind of net like money Mr. Rogers brought in, because I bet he donated a lot of it. You know that he probably donated a lot of his money. I have a feeling that he,
Yeah, yeah. Because I don't think. I mean, we saw them sitting there with two grand pianos,
yeah, yeah. So
right?
he would
And-
have
oh,
lived like probably really well, but modestly as well.
yes, yes.
Um,
That's the impression I'm given.
mm-hmm. Because he
Right?
deserved like yeah, he probably had everything that he needed, and
He took the train.
yeah, yeah, you know that.
Yeah.
He definitely. I wonder what it would have been like to have been his kids though, because they mentioned that in there, and what kind of like that must have been. I can't even imagine what it
That it
been.
was being one of his children.
Yeah, well, because he's
Yeah,
got
they
two
said it was very
boys.
difficult.
He's got two boys, and
Yes.
that would be a tough, you know. I can't imagine what that would have been like. I can't imagine if that would be a good thing, and I think it would. I don't see how it could be bad, but you don't know.
Well, apparently they didn't see it as great.
Yeah, because
That it wasn't.
his kids are very private, and you don't hear of them. But
No, no.
no, but
But anyway, I don't think there's that much really more to say about it. Can't think of
the
anything.
ending though, like I want to just quickly go over the ending when, because Mr. Rogers, he comes over to the his father's place because this guy decides, because he didn't want to have anything to do with his father even, and his father had found out that he's dying, and he goes
Yeah.
over to he decides that he's gonna forgive his father and go stay with them until he passes on. So
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers shows up there at his house,
Yes.
and he that was at the end of it, and they have a visit with Mr. Rogers, and it's a funny visit. Like I loved that scene. He was
That
so
scene
good
was
with
really
them,
good.
and he made him feel. He said that thing about death. Remember, like that.
Yes.
You know, like death is just is human, and if it's human, then it's manageable, and
Yes.
all that stuff. And he made him feel comfortable. Then he whispered something in his ear that we didn't hear, but then he comes out and he said that, you know, he said to his father that to pray for him, because if somebody in his situation must be very close to God. Like who says stuff like that? You have to be so perfect. Like
Yeah.
like, like this guy's like close to like Jesus level. Isn't like he must be like related to
And
Jesus. Like,
that was his belief. That was his belief. And
yeah.
so, and so that's fine, like he went with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was a good scene though.
That was a real, yeah, and like the little baby who was so like he just got right he's just so good with the like when he's around like the kids, like he's just in his element, and
And then
then
they did the selfie there, the family, and he's there,
hmm
and the son-in-law there. He says this would be just way cooler if you were in it,
yeah,
you
it would
know,
have been, but Mr.
because it was Mr.
Rogers,
Rogers that was taking the picture.
yeah, and he did that. Yeah, he took one picture of Lloyd, like he was the one doing the picture taking, because that's how he is. Like he doesn't see himself as like this big celebrity, you know.
No, 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 he
So,
didn't.
before we wrap it up, what do you give this one for a rating?
Oh, out of five,
Yeah,
5.
me too. Totally.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
loved it. 100%. I give this like, yeah, loved it.
Well
Um,
worth watching. I'd watch it again.
oh, me too. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I wouldn't say that about too many movies,
Me neither. Me neither.
right?
Yep. Nope. This one is a.
I just want to touch a little bit too on something, on a separate thing.
Mm.
Um, The Irishman came out on Netflix this week,
Okay.
and I watched it. Um, Now it's over 3 hours long.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it's a Martin Scorsese film, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you,
You think
it's
we should review it?
it's something else. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. We'll have to maybe make that our next thing that we review.
yeah, it's good. Yeah.
All right. Perfect.
Okay. All right.
Well, thanks for being on, and
No
we'll
problem.
talk to you. Tomorrow is our monthly chat where we just kind
Yes.
of review random movies and TV shows, and we're gonna talk about some Agents of Shield, stuff like
Yeah.
that. So anyway, guys, thanks for being on, and I'll
No problem.
talk to you later.
Yeah. Okay. Bye
Okay,
bye.
bye bye. Okay, so that all right, so just gonna get this all wrapped up now. So thank you guys for watching. I hope this one is definitely one of my favorite movies of all time. I love it so much, and it's definitely worth the money going to see in a time right now where a lot of movies are kind of not that great, but this one is definitely worth your time. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye bye.